Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, the wine guy. I'd love to be your go-to guide for all things wine, food, and the amazing places they take us. Here on Pour and Explore, we'll sip, savor, and wander through the exciting world of wine, discuss incredible cuisines, and uncover the stories behind unforgettable destinations. Each week, I'll bring you lively conversations with wine experts, chefs, travel pros, and fellow enthusiasts. We'll share practical tips, hilarious tales, and plenty of inspiration to fuel your next adventure. So grab a glass, pull up a chair, and join me as we pour, explore, and celebrate the good life. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Pour and Explore, a wine, food, and travel podcast. I'm your host, Nick Elliott, certified sommelier, former winemaker, classically trained chef, and your guide to all things delicious and adventurous. Now, if you've been following the show at all, you know I love to dive into the intersection of food, culture, and storytelling. And today's guest embodies all of that and more. Joining us today is the incredibly talented Jacqine Cohen-Beatty. She is a woman of many hats. She is a chef. She is a musician. She is an author. She's a comedian, an all-around creative powerhouse. And let me tell you, her latest project is something truly special. It's an interactive ebook that blends international cuisine, storytelling, comedy, and music in a one-of-a-kind culinary experience. Now, before I met Jackie, I had never seen anything quite like it, and even now, I still haven't. Her book isn't just a collection of recipes, it's an immersive journey that invites you to cook, to laugh, to listen, and even dance in your kitchen. Imagine having a dinner party where your cookbook not only guides you through amazing dishes, but also entertains you with humorous vignettes and original music. Now, that is my kind of night. But Jackie's creativity doesn't stop there. She's also a gifted musician and composer with her work spanning R&B, jazz, funk. She does film scores and much, much more. Her music has been heard in over 110 countries, and she's worked alongside some major names in the industry. I'm really, really excited to have her on the show today. And if that weren't enough, she's also a hilarious storyteller, a performer bringing characters from her book, larger than life, fun, antics, and skits. You're absolutely going to love it. So in today's conversation, we're going to talk about Jackie's journey through food, music, and storytelling, the inspiration behind this amazing book that she's written, her favorite travel destinations and how they shaped her cooking, the magic of combining food and entertainment. I mean, what's better than that? And of course, we will be talking a little bit about wine. I can't have an episode of my show without talking a little bit about wine. Jackie has incredible energy, and I'm so excited for her to share her story with you. So grab a glass of your favorite wine and let's get into it. All right, Jackie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. So happy to be here. Thank you so much, Nick. You're fantastic with all your help, all your support. I'm really very grateful to know you and be on this podcast.
I'm very, very happy to have you on. Absolutely. I definitely want to talk about, all of the great things that you've seen, all the things that you're doing. The ebook is an absolutely fascinating concept. Before I met you, I had not heard of anything like it, and I haven't heard anything like it since. So as far as cooking inspiration goes, the book is all about international cuisine. It sounds amazing. I've read the book myself. It looks amazing. I've created a couple of the recipes as well. Really a lot of fun. What inspired you to create this book?
I was inspired because, the people love to eat. I love to eat. I've traveled to many places in the world, and I enjoyed the food that I had in international cuisine. And I've been cooking since I'm 15 years old. And over time, I really honed my spices, my skills to be able to perfect different types of cuisines, and took cooking classes as well. And really got interested in the way that I could apply different techniques to food and really, connect with it in a way that balances all the flavors and ingredients. And I love tasting things. I guess in a former life, I should have been a taste tester, but because I'm able to taste the minute differences between food, I
Mhm.
do that very well between foods. Like you can give me two pieces of chocolate, I know the minute differences between the chocolates. That's how good my taste buds are in that sense. So love that, being able to sample foods and this sort of thing. And so that was one aspect of, my skills. But then I also have been doing music since I'm 9 years old. And music, started when my parents bought me an organ to play different notes on. And over many years, I expanded my repertoire to be able to play very complex chord progressions and do musical production and film scores. And, I sing, I write music, I do character voices. And that's where the comedy comes in, because the
Mhm.
improv is something that I had in college. And then I was in high school plays. So I had lead roles in high school plays. And so comedy was something that evolved. It was just that people would come to me and say, you really have a sense of humor. I love your sense of humor. You're so funny. You tell stories very well. So the story part of it is sort of evolved. And over time, I started to write these various stories. And then I thought one day, wow, what if I would have combined it with something? Cooking is great, but how do I make cooking more interesting? There's
Mhm.
hundreds of cookbooks out there. So I decided to do these comedy stories. They're like vignettes, like short plays
Mhm.
in the ebook.
Mhm.
And so I decided to do that. And then another day, I woke up one day and I said, well, why don't I put music in there since I'm a musician? So somehow to put the arts into it to make it more interactive.
State of mind. State of mind. My experience along the way.
So we have different senses, right? Some people
Yep.
touch, feel, smell. I just thought that this combination of would be entertaining, and it's like a dinner show in the kitchen. So when you're cooking, you can dance to the music, you can listen to the comedy, sound effects, in surround sound if you want, and host a dinner party and have fun or read stories if you want. And the nice thing about the ebook is that it's a clickable table of contents, so you can click on
Mhm.
to the contents. And if you want, Italian cuisine one day, you can have Italian cuisine. There's Italian, Greek, Mexican, Thai, Moroccan, Cajun, French, Indian food, fusion, like Eastern European. There's soups and salads. There's many different choices that people can choose from, and they can click on the table of contents and get there. Or if they want to just hear music, they click a QR code and just get to the music, or just read a story.
Yeah, I really love that. It's so much fun to go through. It's so much fun to listen to. The stories are fun. The music is obviously amazing, which I do want to talk about in just a minute. But you mentioned that you've traveled a bunch of places, and I know you've been to Greece, Spain, Italy. Tell me, from someone who has traveled the world as much as you have, which destination has left the biggest impression on you as a chef, as a cook?
Italy was fantastic for, taking the cooking classes that I had. I've been there 3 times, really got to perfect my knowledge between different types of foods from north to south and learning the differences. So it was fantastic. But Greece also has amazing food, and I was very impressed. But yeah, I would say because of the cooking classes and really getting into learning this knowledge of what I was able to gain from that, I really had an impression. Of course, my book is full of my own recipes that are not anybody else's. But as far as having an impression on me, I think that made the most impression because of the cooking classes.
Absolutely. Italy is the land of food and drink. It's hard not to come back with something inspirational, whether it's a dish, whether it's something you overheard. I talk a lot about travel and culture on this show, and Italy has one of the richest cultures, in the world, between the food and the family and everything. It's just an amazing experience, and I love it very much. Speaking of, the culture, I want to talk a little bit about your storytelling as well. The book has fascinating stories along with the food and the music and the fun, the humor side of it. Let's talk a little bit about the storytelling aspect of the book. You're a wonderful storyteller. Tell me how that evolved over the years.
Yeah, I mean, everybody goes through different experiences, and I certainly have had different experiences, or some of them in the story were enhanced because I would think of some of the things that happened to me, and then I would just evolve them into more stories beyond what was there and bring some more humor into it. But they evolve because I think, in life we all need an outlet. There's so much put upon us to produce and just do well. My outlet was comedy and music, but writing the stories really helped me to clear that from my mind because I was like,
Hmm.
these are funny things that happened to me, that I could write about. They were experiences and they were very relatable experiences. So the stories came about where I was able to create fun and humor in it.
Awesome. In my book, you can't really talk about food without talking about wine. As far as I'm concerned, they go hand in hand. Do you have any fun wine stories from your travels or even locally that you'd like to share with us?
I'm trying to think, wine is definitely something, for example, in Italy, like you mentioned. I went to some wineries there. There was some tastings there, and certainly like there's things that I cook with wine, in the book. So I have that. And certainly around dinner, around where there was wine, sitting at a dinner table, there was a lot
Yeah.
of fun that happened with a crowd of people, and we were sharing stories amongst food and wine. It was just nice to have that wine element included in the dinners because every time we sat down for dinner, there was a bottle of wine. So it was always that wine thing, in my international travels. But yeah, one of my favorite wines is Pinot Noir. I might have told
Hmm.
you that. Yeah.
You did, yeah. We share that, you and I. Pinot's
Yeah.
our first love, absolutely.
It's great. I love that. I like the sweeter wines. I think that the sweeter wines are nicer. I mean, I have an occasional glass of wine here and there, but yeah, the sweeter wines for me is great. And you're a fantastic wine educator. You know so much about wine.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing. I was amazed at attending, a couple of your events and hearing the knowledge that you have about it. It's super fantastic.
Well, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. All right, let's move on from wine and food for just a minute. I would absolutely be remiss without talking about your music career. When I first heard the first track from you, I was absolutely blown away. You've got an amazing voice. You're extremely talented, amazing songwriter. So let's talk a little bit about that. You mentioned you started learning music, when you were 9 or so, and your music's available on YouTube and Spotify. Tell us a little bit about that and make sure that our audience knows how to get a hold of some of your music.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's on many platforms, as you mentioned, those platforms. My music's been heard in 110 countries across the world in a number of countries. So I'm a music producer, I'm a singer-songwriter, music arranger. I do film scores and various types of music. So from R&B to smooth jazz to funk to folk, pop music, ambient, film score, dinner music, 1920s music, classical music. I do a wide range of music. This has come about because I've had so many influences of music throughout my career. I mean, I grew up listening to funk music, many famous groups, and I definitely think they had an influence on me and, some famous singers too. So I think that definitely having grown up with that, that inspiration, it was amazing how my talents and skills had evolved over time. But yeah, I was doing music at a young age and then started singing when I was around 10 years old. My dad discovered my vocal talent. And then I took some voice lessons. I made the Conservatory of Music at college. I took conservatory courses, piano ear training, theory, composition. That helped a lot. I mean, I'm mostly self-taught, but I was able to learn theory where even some people who attended these prestigious music schools, they turn around to say to me, hey, I want to write with you. And a couple of
Mhm.
them have. So I ended up working with really famous people and then celebrities. And so things had evolved in that realm. And so I still continue actually I may be scoring a feature film towards the end of this year. Potentially, there's good potential in that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm also producing, an artist right now who's worked with major label talent. So she loves the new music that I produce for her. And then she's decided to co-write with me. So it's great. And so that's how it started with my business. And then it evolved with me adding the cooking and the comedy.
All right, all right. And if someone wanted to find you, let's say on YouTube, you do go by a stage name. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my stage name, my artist name is Jacqine, Jacqine, and my website is jacqine.com. But yeah, if someone wanted to find me, they just could Google Jacqine, and they would find me. And there's lots of podcasts I was on, magazines I've been in, radio shows, television too. So there's a number of them listed as well, on my website.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. For the audience, I highly recommend you go out and check out Jacqine. The music is exemplary, very, very eclectic in style. So I'm sure that you're going to find something that you enjoy, if not all of it. Very, very good. All right. Well, let's jump back to food. I want to talk a little bit more about this book that we've mentioned. This book encompasses food, obviously. It encompasses some great stories, comedy, music. Well, tell us a couple of recipes. What are your, let's say, 2 favorite recipes that are in the book?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I love different various foods, Definitely I have Italian food in there. Chicken and peppers in there, for example, is one of them. One of my favorites. Actually, I cook it quite a lot. But then I also have Thai food in there. So I love pad Thai. So I was able to make that. And then now I do some offshoots of, the recipes. Sometimes I'll do something additionally within Thai food. But yeah, I would say Thai food is, a favorite. And even I love Mexican food. So I have, Mexican recipes in there too. I think that it's important also to have a staple of ingredients to have on hand, because if you have the staple of ingredients, you can cook many different types of dishes,
Yes.
many different cuisines as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. The very first episode of the show that I did, I talked about, from a chef's opinion, what should be in your pantry. So I completely agree with you that, having a stocked pantry, of very general ingredients, good olive oil, garlic, onions always on hand, potatoes always on hand, wine, of course, boxes of chicken stock or vegetable stock, things like that. If you're able to curate a good pantry of food in your home, you can create just about anything.
And you're a chef. I mean, you're a trained chef. You've done so many things. You've had restaurants. So I look up to you. I admire what you've done and what you do, because, you're an expert. In addition to wine, you're an expert on foods. You worked in hospitality for 30 years, you said?
Yeah, I've been in some form of hospitality since the mid-90s, yes.
Wow. It's fantastic. So I definitely, respect and love what you've done, and you've come so far with all of your skills. It's amazing to speak with you and be on this podcast.
You're very sweet. Thanks, Jackie. I appreciate it. So in the book, we've talked about food. We've talked about the travel and story aspect of it. What we haven't touched on is the comedy aspect of it. One of my favorite things you do is Soup Dishy. Tell us about Soup Dishy.
Yeah, and you've read the book. You might be able to even say a few things. There's the chef. I have a snippet of my movie trailer. I did a movie trailer. It's on my website. Chef Soup Dishy is, he's someone, I created this character who's very sure of himself and, doesn't like to be insulted. And he loves to have people to have a good time in his restaurant. Restaurant, quote unquote. I don't really have a restaurant. It's just someone I made up from the book. It's a character. So yeah, his name is Chef Soup Dishy. And I even have done like online shows with this character. So I dress in a costume. So my persona becomes someone else. So my personality changes completely. My voice changes and I become this Chef Soup Dishy character.
Yeah. To me, it's like a combination, if you can imagine this, a combination of Emeril Lagasse and like Elvis Presley. It's somewhere in there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the movie trailer, it's interesting because the videographer who worked on the movie trailer with me, I directed it, but he did some co-direction too, Nick Elliott. He was fantastic with bringing out the expressions to me, because I played 5 different characters for this one particular scene. I mean, I've gotten many stories in the ebook, but I really brought that story to life. It's called Stirring Up Food. So
yes.
It's one of the stories in the ebook. And so the video is actually more because I had finished the ebook already, but it really gives a sense of all the 5 characters that I portrayed in different costumes and different voices. And he found a way to look like the characters were talking to each other. It was like me talking to myself 5 times.
Right. For the audience, this book that we're talking about is so much fun. If you love food, if you love travel, if you love to laugh, if you love to eat, this is something that should absolutely be on your computer, on your iPad, and, whip it out when you've got guests over, things like that. It really is a lot of fun and really, really well done. I highly recommend that you get your hands on that as a listener. A couple more questions before we start to wrap things up. I love to travel myself. I have a huge list of places that I want to go on my quote unquote bucket list. Tell us what's on your bucket list.
Yeah, I don't have any plans for travel right now or anything, but I would love to in places I want to go. Definitely the Caribbean. If I were to travel, St. Lucia is one place. Various places in the Caribbean would be amazing. Bahamas. I've never been to France. I'd love to go to France. Would love to see Europe. I want to see Asia. All those places, beautiful places everywhere. Thailand, many places.
Well, the Caribbean, I would say that Caribbean cuisine is right there in the top 5 for me, just as a whole, just the flavors and the styles, really, really good stuff. One last thing, keeping on the food track, you obviously, have a lot of talent for being able to create different types of cuisine and have that tongue, those taste buds, as you mentioned earlier, to really dig down into what's in the recipe and so on. And as a sommelier, I understand that, because we need to have a very keen sense of smell and a very keen sense of taste, so we can pick up on those small nuances. Is it from France? Is it from California? Is it from New Zealand? So I definitely understand that concept. Going into the book, was there a recipe that you were really skeptical about, but came to love? Something that you either wound up putting in the book or not, just something that you were like, I don't know, but fell in love with it?
Honestly, there's some recipes that I put together that I didn't cook, but I put them together. From the ones that I did cook, honestly, I tried to put everything that I liked. If certain dishes didn't come out while I was cooking it, I didn't put them in the book if I knew that they didn't really pan out.
And that's why I'm asking, because I would say that the general public thinks that, as a chef or someone who's trained, that everything comes out picture perfect. And I can tell you, from experience, that's not always the case. I know that a dish is not a winner when I don't hear it from my wife.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Well, fantastic. I really appreciate you being on the show. I'm going to make sure that all of the connections are down below in the show notes. Tell us the website again and any other places you want folks to find you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely they can visit the website. My website is jacqine.com, JACQINE.com. But if you have, like I said, QR code, with your link, they could go straight to that. But yeah, they could find me that way on my website. But they could also find my music. If they go to YouTube and they type in Jacqine, they could find the music there. If they Google Jacqine, they can find me in many places on there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. So go ahead and Google Jacqine and all of the great stuff that she's doing. You'll find the link for the book in the show notes, as well as all of the other ways to get a hold of her. So please do. Jackie, thank you so much for being on the show. It was awesome to have you. I really appreciate it. We've known each other for a while. It's great to be able to sit down with you and have a great conversation again after all of the other ones that we've had. So I appreciate you being on the show.
I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a great conversation, and I really enjoyed this conversation and all that you do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Jackie, this has been such a fun and inspiring conversation. I really, really appreciate it. Your passion for food, music, storytelling is just absolutely contagious, and I love hearing about it. And I love the fact that you've blended all of those things together into something really, truly special. For everyone who's listening, if you love food, if you love travel, if you love comedy, music, Jackie's ebook is a must have, not on your shelf. It's going to be on your phone or on your laptop, and it is an experience, absolutely just not a cookbook. So whether you're looking for inspiration in the kitchen, a good laugh, some amazing tunes while you cook, this book definitely has it all. Definitely hit the show notes for the contact information to get your hands on that book. First and foremost, check out Jackie's socials, her website as well. Lots of fun stuff going on.
Besides all of those notes in the show, you'll find all of my links as well. So if you need to get a hold of the wine guy, please do. And of course, if you're listening for the first time, we really, really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I would really, really appreciate any comments you have on the show as well. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today's episode. And like I always say going out, please, everyone, keep wondering and wandering, and cheers until next time. Take care.
Notify me, notify me now. Won't you notify me, notify me now. Many times I've seen this song before from other people at other places, trying to achieve more than I had before. So many good things I'd strive to accomplish. I was looking for answers to fulfill my quest, to fulfill my quest. When I started asking questions, it was then I knew. It was then I knew. It was this dream of my success. There seemed to be clues to follow. I looked to follow my intuition, so that it come to fruition. And I'd say, oh yeah, notify
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Pour and Explore. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, and your questions, so you can drop me a line at cheers@thewineguy.vin. That's cheers@thewineguy.vin. Or let's connect on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Grab those links on my website at thewineguy.vin. Until next time, let's keep wondering and wandering. Cheers, everyone.